My name is Aaron Velky. I'm a coach to entrepreneurs. I help 6 to 7 figure entrepreneurs double their income and double their free time. I'm also the CEO of a company called Money Club. Catch me on the Jesse T Show.
Aaron, what is going on, my friend?
It's been a beautiful day. It's been a beautiful start to the morning.
Tell us how it started, man. It was pretty interesting what you did so far.
So, all right. So I want you to imagine walking out. It's Arizona summertime, so it's rather warm. It's 6 a.m. I walk out to a fire pit every morning to do my meditation. Today, special morning, I got greeted by this beautiful sunrise and a rainbow with like a sprinkle. And as I got into the meditation, I wouldn't call it a downpour, but certainly a pretty moderate rain for the middle of the desert. And the combination of all things, fire, rain, and rainbow, says that it's going to be a magical day today.
It already is, brother. I can feel it, man. What a beautiful, I would love to have been there. I'm a huge nature guy. I love being in the rain. I love running in the rain, playing in the rain with myself, my friends, my kids. It's a beautiful, magical place. Did anything come through for you in terms of from your meditation, anything that, maybe a thought or just kind of a feeling that you had during that time?
So it's Tuesday. I've got a big workshop, a team building, like half-day workshop that I'm leading with Microsoft on Thursday. So okay. A couple days away. And in prep for that, there's this interesting junction of, are you prepared and are you open? And you have to have the right mix of the two. If you go too prepared, you're rigid. If you go too flowy, you're nonsensical and it feels drifty. So this morning I was working on the worksheets and or sort of meditating on what this is going to be like and how I can show up the best. And afterwards, so I finished and knocked out the entire map of worksheets in like 20 minutes, which is pretty unheard of. I usually take a long creative process to do that. And it was absolute clarity. I know exactly what I want people to experience. I understand the structure. Yep. And very rarely do I have that kind of speed, because in order to move that quickly, you have to be really clear. So I've felt great this morning. Absolutely great.
Clarity, focus, precision, powerfully present. These are beautiful things. And tell us, you were using Calm. And is this something that you've been using for a while?
Using Calm, yeah, I've been involved in meditation for 7 years, and I've gone through different iterations. Calm, Headspace. I've done the Miracle Morning. I've done all these different iterative elements of it, and I find that holding on to one way doesn't work for me. So I try something new every 3 months, 6 months.
Same.
Or so.
Yeah,
and I just like that change. I like that evolution. Right now, Calm has been a really good, consistent way to get my day started, and I can plug in and plug out in 10 minutes. So if I am in a time crunch, I can still ground myself before the day gets into chaos mode.
That's an important piece that you said there, 10 minutes. Most people think that you have to drop into a meditation, take an hour, take a half a day. And there was something I heard years ago from Tony Robbins talking about meditation. He's like, if you don't have 5 or 10 minutes a day to meditate, that means you have to meditate. Like if you can't carve out enough time for yourself, the most important person in your life is essentially you, because there is no other relationship. There is no, connective tissue if you don't exist. And if you don't take care of yourself, you can't show up powerfully present for anyone else. And not that it's being egotistical or greedy. It's the exact opposite. You can't be of service. You cannot love people unless you love yourself and take care of yourself. And, self-care looks so many different ways. Like you said, it changes through the seasons. But talk to us a little bit about meditation and what it's done for you through your life cycle with it, in terms of your life day to day, what it's brought in, things that it's done for you.
Meditation is great. And what a flat way to say that. You and I both have posters on our wall that say mindset is everything.
Yep.
And that's sort of the backdrop of what meditation does. In my world, there's a tremendous amount of volatility. As an entrepreneur, for those of you that are admiring from the outside, looking in and saying, man, I really want that. It is a roller coaster of success, wins, losses, failure, recalibrations, difficult conversations, fear, anxiety, hope, optimism. It is like the full experience of the human condition in a lot of ways. And the way that you react to that has such critical importance, especially when you're in a leadership position. The act of meditation, the practice of meditation helps level my reaction and my responses to what's happening.
Yep.
If I have a difficult conversation coming up, I'm likely to be very anxious, and that's human. I don't enjoy having difficult conversations or confrontations. It is, however, a part of my existence and part of my responsibility to step in and sometimes be an advocate for someone in the best way they need me to be.
Yes.
And I have to confront the way they are. And as a coach, those things give me anxiety. I need to be very cognizant of my energy, of my mindset, my state, walking into those conversations to be able to absorb any kind of radical change in the energy, any kind of radical state change between us. Or if there's hurt or if there's anger or if there's emotion, I want to be in a place where I can hold it and not react to it. And meditation is just one of many ways that we can find ourselves in a really strong place mentally so that we can show up for someone else mentally. And I find that to be really important over the course of 7 years of coaching entrepreneurs and 12 years of coaching. It's the deal breaker between what is excellence when it comes to coaching and what's mediocrity.
Yep. And you find a lot of mediocrity. You find a lot of people that are quote unquote posers too. People that they preach something they haven't even experienced. And, with meditation, if you can just get still, and this is something that I've worked on through the years, and I like to meditate in nature as well. I like to go up to a place in not too far from Atlanta called Kennesaw Mountain, walk up the top of that mountain. A lot of history up there. Battles were fought up there. So it's very powerful, a lot of energy up there. And I just sit and I listen. And I don't have to, for personally, I may have a mantra for the day or for the moment. Sometimes I might just ask one question and just sit still, and nature will provide. It sounds woo-woo, right? But it's true. Nature operates in a frequency that if you could tap into that frequency, because we are nature, it'll give you everything you're looking for. And I think it's important for people to understand what you alluded to, and I'll tap into your experience here in a second, but there are other means to get to this point. So if you feel like, meditation is not for you, if you feel like you can't get to it, there's a couple things you can do, many things, but things that I've learned that are pretty easy are movement. There was going back to another guy that I saw, we talked about Tony Robbins just for a quick second. There was a guy, I forget his name. I think it's Joe. I'd have to look his name, but he called this shake your ass. And so basically get up, stand up and just shake your ass. And the act of moving your body, as you well know, will change your state, especially if you're shaking your ass. How can you take yourself too seriously? How could you not be happy if you're shaking that ass? And just the idea of moving your body, we store so much energy and the body keeps the score kind of deal that if we don't move the energy through us, it can become dis-ease, which it can lead to disease. And then the second piece that I really want to delve into, and I wonder if you've had experience with this, is breath work. And this is something that as long as you're alive, you own it. And you can do breath work anywhere. It doesn't take a lot of time. And I think it's important. You talked about changing your state of fight or flight or freeze, anxiety, fear, whatever these things are that we put into our mind about a hard conversation coming up, a tough meeting we have to prepare for, an interesting conversation with someone that maybe we don't want to have. And, what I've learned through breath work is many things, from holotropic breathing, where I can have psychedelic experiences, all the way to box breathing, where if I take 30 seconds, I can change my state from being at like a 7, 8, 9 of fear or frustration or anger and bring it down to like maybe a 5 or a 6. So now I can operate a little bit better. Have you experienced breath work in any capacity?
Both of those.
Okay. And
very much agree that it's something that no one can strip you of. Mm-hmm. What is your breathing? I've been a runner and a soccer player my whole life.
Nice.
And the better you get at running, the more athletic you become on a soccer pitch, the less you think about. In a way, you find your bliss, you find your escape.
It's meditative.
You're completely extracted from your body.
Yes.
And the only way to get there is to really master your breathing, right? If you're running, you have to have a really good cadence with your breath.
Yes.
And when I started to get into breath work a little bit and try it, there's a lot of pressure on what do you experience?
Yes.
at least initially, I felt so much pressure to have like a psychedelic experience, or like think this or feel this or notice this.
Yep.
And there was a time where at retreats I was hosting, it was just bombarding to try to get someone to feel something and to get me to feel something.
Yep.
And the irony is that through all of the breath work I've had, the best moments are always the moments where I don't ask for it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want an epiphany. I'm just there to breathe.
That's it.
And that is sort of the microcosm of the surrender to learning how to breathe and learning how to manipulate your breath a little bit and letting it ground you. When I think about being afraid, your heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
Your breathing changes. All the rhythms in your body are firing in different cylinders.
Yep.
And if you can recenter again, you'd be surprised at how much of a difference it would make for your performance, your meeting, your pitch. Like, I stand in front of hundreds of people sometimes and am nervous. I think it's important to be nervous. If I'm not nervous, I don't care enough.
Yep.
And the thing that grounds me down is breathe in, breathe out. And that sounds overly elementary. And yet we gloss over it like breath doesn't matter. But I guarantee if I take it away from you, it will matter.
Absolutely. And it's a precursor to meditation too. So if you can bring an awareness to your breath, which most people don't do in the course of a day. Most people, unless they're taught, trained, and practice this idea of, breathe in, breathe out. Are you breathing from your upper chest? Are you breathing from your diaphragm? And how long are your breaths and how many are you doing? You can look at it that way. What you're doing is you're bringing an awareness to the moment that most people don't do in the course of a day. And one of the biggest gifts, and it's cliche, but one of the biggest gifts we'll ever have is the now, is the present that we live in. Because if we live in the present and we show up in the present for ourselves and other people, that's a life well lived. And most people don't live in the present. This is what causes anxiety because of the fear of the future, the fear of tomorrow, or they screwed something up in the past they wish they could go back and fix, and they can't because we only have now. So I think that being able to pull yourself into the present moment, whether you're speaking on stages, whether you're, in a relationship and have a conversation with your significant other, the only time we have is now. And being able to pull yourself into that moment, it's a cornerstone or a linchpin to so many different things.
Yeah,
breathing is so powerful, man. And so kind of jumping back into something you alluded to earlier with, I think you said Microsoft and preparing for a moment with them coming up. What are you going to be doing for them and expanding out from there? What is the value that you're kind of bringing to them? And then what are you doing for other companies for what you do for your company?
So with Microsoft, they've got an elite team that functions at a high level and has operated digitally and remotely for the last 2.5 years. Many of them have never met.
Yep.
And the leader of this group has a real good sense and awareness to what operations are efficient and what is not. The conversation with him started with how is your team operating? What needs to be improved? What's missing? And after a long conversation, we got to dig into the fact that everyone's remote and has, in many ways, never met except for digitally.
Yep.
So here's a team that's doing well, operating well, but hasn't got the time and the physical and the mental and emotional stimulation that comes from real, genuine connection. So my job is, in a half day and a dinner the night before, to boost their productivity and their team engagement by 30%. That's my goal.
Okay. That's a very specific number in a very short amount of time. Where do those two come from? The time frame of just a dinner and then a half a day the next day and then 30% specifically for productivity. What is that? Is that case by case, or is this pretty much an operating system that you can deploy across businesses?
It's generally case by case. This is a smaller team, so there's less loss in the ripple effect of decision making and systems and orders. This particular group they're already fantastic. And by inviting them to new conversations, inviting them to be a bit more vulnerable with each other, inviting them to build human connection and understand what their individual skill sets are, where their strengths are, where their challenges are, their fears are, what they want out of their life. This entire half-day workshop becomes the blossoming of what a team is.
Yep.
When I think of what we now call culture, what we now call chemistry in a team, if it were a sports team, I think of that like magic. If you have all the right ingredients, that doesn't activate it. You have to have something that activates it. And it's that personal connection that I very much believe is the catalyst for a big boost on the backside.
Yep.
If we can create an opportunity where someone in a position to boost and grow and evolve needs to rely on another person, and that bridge has not been built, that opportunity falls flat. So with somebody like Microsoft and this group, my job is to come in and activate those bridges so that when there is an opportunity that needs to cross from one person to the other, or needs a lean in, or needs someone to say, hey, I need help, it's already installed. The bridge is there. This largely comes from me leading a lot of retreats, coaching with a lot of entrepreneurs. I've got a company called Money Club that works with companies that already have culture, and we teach their team about money, financial education as a workplace benefit. So I've got a lot, like 2 different hats into this ecosystem. One is, here's a benefit that you can offer to your team. We're going to lead workshops and help them grow personally so that they grow professionally.
Yep.
One of the most fascinating things happening in the world right now is that people are leaving jobs for less money if they can grow and if they can be happy.
Yep.
And so that's a really cool benefit that we're offering through Money Club. The side that I wear independently is working with leaders to help them lead more effectively and help their team grow collectively. And, all these different pieces they're just lessons I've learned the hard way. I used to coach girls soccer. I coached for 12 years, and it's way harder to coach adolescents than adults.
Sure.
Because they can't always self-advocate. There's sometimes a barrier between what am I feeling, what am I experiencing, what do I want. There's some shame, there's difficulty in expression. And with adults, to come in and maximize a team the way I used to maximize sports teams, the way I used to maximize in retreats with other entrepreneurs, it's all the same. It's just, are there bridges so that when you need help, need support, need information, you have access to it? And I'm big on build people.
Yep.
And the way you build people is with people. And it's a strange connection, but it's a tissue that's missing in a lot of workplaces.
There's this theme that I'm drawing from my own personal experience. It sounds like you're alluding to, and it's this idea. I was in the military, and we used to do evolutions, and evolutions were designed for a few different things: to teach us something new, to operate as a unit, to come together and support each other, to have each other's backs, to have a common goal, shared goal. And they could be mental, physical, all these different things, but they were designed to have us come together as a unit and say, let's do this together. And it creates force multiplication because you have multiple people driving towards the same goal. And then there's second, third, fourth, fifth order effect of, once we accomplish this, these other trickle down things happen in terms of our goals. But there's specific processes, specific techniques and tools that we would use. And so thinking about a business setting, it's very similar where you want a lot of the same outcomes and you can have some of the same outcomes. What are some of these tools that you implement, some of these exercises specifically that you'll walk a team through, whether it be Microsoft or anyone else you've worked with in retreats or individually one-on-one, that you can create that cohesiveness, that teamwork, that unity, that spearhead to create that force multiplication?
Well, in my opinion, there are 4 E's to really strong team chemistry, really good team culture.
Yep.
Call it whatever you want to call it. The first is choose trust.
Okay.
I think that trust is a choice, and I believe that trust is a choice. So we have to regularly choose that. That usually puts us in dialogue that might make us initially uncomfortable so that we build that bridge that we referenced earlier. So choose trust is first. The next is to deepen communication. And this is really critical with teams. In the frenzy of a day, we may not be able to articulate the way we normally would. I might say, Jesse, I need help right away, and not be able to issue you the pleasantries that I might normally want to. If we haven't done that ever, that might be a very abrasive conversation.
Yep.
Jesse, I need your help right now. Can you help me with this? And you might say, dude, this guy is very aggressive and he didn't even ask me how my day was. If we've already deepened the communication, that conversation is met very differently. So deepening communication is often a lot of vulnerability, so transparency, and a bit of self-awareness to say, hey, I'm stepping into this conversation this way. What's my state? What's my energy like? And what's my ask so that a team can operate really well? The next is practicing performance. And this is the personal side of this. You have to be able to operate at a high level. What skills are critical to your job, to your performance, to your results? And what do you need to learn? So we're at another junction of, hey, let me move forward professionally with my skills, with my appetite, with my growth. And also let me be aware of my weaknesses. Aware of where the holes are, where the gaps are. And if I'm aware of where the gaps are, maybe I don't need to learn it. Perhaps I can lean on someone else. And then last but not least, you brought this up just a minute ago, develop mission. Like you've got to have a direction. If half the boat is rowing left and half the boat is rowing right, circles. You're either going to spin in circles or someone's going to break an arm. It's just not going to be effective. And that mission can be super, super, super large. It can be, there's a company, a movie just got released called Beyond Zero. A company called Interface wanted to build sustainable carpet tiles. Flipping amazing goal. And it's taken them 20 years to do it. But now they have carbon negative carpet tiles. Which is beautiful. Mind-blowing concept.
The 20-year overnight success is what most of it comes down to, right?
Exactly. And like that mission brought everyone together. For a small team, we don't need to articulate a mission like build a sustainable carpet tile. It could simply be, we want to offer our clients more than just the sale. We want to be there to support their goals and their staff so they feel welcome to address problems with us rather than against us. Could be something like that. It could be, hey, we want to optimize and we want to personally grow. We want to build as a team. The team gets to determine what that mission is. But an aligned target, whether it's a championship victory, a performance outcome, an emotional feeling, or a team celebration, needs to be articulated for every single person so that they're rowing in the same direction. Underneath that, you organize to that mission. You organize when you need to meet, how frequently, what kind of communication protocols do you need, what kind of systems need to be in place, how do you touch base when you're living virtually and in different places. But all those things as a function of a half-day workshop or a full day or a 2-day workshop is they're generally about talking. And the hesitation and reticence that we often have to be very open with our coworkers, with our teammates, with our co-conspirators in a lot of ways is rather high. And my job is to come in and reduce those walls to as little as possible and as low as possible, if not delete them entirely. So that a team can more fluidly transfer information and skill sets across the board.
I want to talk about your toolkit, what I call the medicine bag. And so I've been called to do my own healing, my own growth, both personally, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, dealing with a lot of things that I grew up with. I had a great life, but also a lot of traumas that are wild. And there's been tools that I've found through the years, from like we talked about meditation, breath work, all the way through sweat lodges, and all the way up to psychedelics and everything in between. And because I've gone on these journeys for myself, I've been able to come back with tools in my medicine bag, so that I've either single one-off facilitation or group facilitation for people where, like you talked about retreats, taking people on retreats and then taking them on this healing experience where you have a group of people that never met. And all of a sudden you're asking them to get like super vulnerable and super connected. And so just talking to a couple of those points, I remember there was an exercise that we did a couple of years ago called Step Forward. And it was a group of 20 people. And this is, more like a spiritual healing type environment. And it was basically like, if you have been bullied, take one step forward. If you have been abused, take one step forward. If you've been a victim of, whatever. And then all of a sudden by the end of it, you've alluded to all these powerfully deep, moving experiences, and everybody is like standing shoulder to shoulder in this group together. And you realize that I am you, you are me. Like we have been through this together. And I'm getting chills thinking about it because it's so powerful. And so thinking about it more of a corporate setting, you can do similar things, but I'm sure they're a little bit more business professional. But walk us through, if you have a tool that you commonly use for each segment of the 4 pillars, for like one for trust, one for communication, one for performance, one for develop mission? Do you have a specific maybe, and maybe it's not a go-to because maybe it's case by case or, situational, but like, do you have tools in the tool bag that say, hey, listen, I am going to develop trust by doing this exercise. I am going to develop communication. Can you give us an illustration for each one of those 4 pillars?
Yeah, this is sort of the part of my life that has been honed the last 6 years.
Yep.
Initially, coaching was case by case and very amorphous. And now I find that my coaching is still amorphous. The tools are rigid. So I have a much better sense of, look, we're going to use this tool. The case that we're using the tool in is different than the last one and the next one. But this tool is really, really sharp. And I learned that from a business partner. In the conversation of trust and communication, the exercise that I find to be really valuable is a very, very simple set of questions. The first question is, where are you? The second question is, where do you want to go?
Okay.
Those 2 questions, the metaphor is that's how a GPS works. Those are the 2 pieces of information that a GPS needs. With only one of those, the GPS is rendered completely useless.
Yep.
Imagine calling an Uber and not putting where you are.
Yeah.
Right. Where's that car going to go? Imagine getting in an Uber and being like, I don't know where I want to go. Both of those cases are like silly, but they illustrate the point. The way that we frame that question is based on 4 different components of our life. Yep. So I like to think about these. First is your career. Where are you in your career? Where are you with your circle, your friends, your family, your loved ones, with your time, and then with your health? So those are just 4 pillars. Where are you?
Yep.
And then second, where do you want to go? And I find that to be really important. We start with the career button because that's the safe space.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we expand a little bit through the others and allow individuals to get more expressive about, look, this is what's happening with my health. This is what's happening with, I'm not creating enough time to do what I love. My inner circle doesn't feel like the right circle anymore. I'm growing and I feel kind of alone and stranded. And as that starts to blossom, and then we look at the other side and say, this is where I want to go. I want a life where I live remote, but I don't live in the US, or I want to build a circle of friends that is constantly pursuing the addition of value to other people, not just taking away from the world.
Yes.
I want to be, in an ecosystem that is like community gardens and people nurturing with healthy food and whatever that is. That starts to create a lot of communication. And that's really the building blocks of trust.
Yep.
When we go into performance, this is a very simple question. What skills matter the most? And that's usually an ongoing conversation with the whole group because there's such different perspectives on this lens an angled question about skills. Skills are not necessarily fixed. So we have a great discussion as a group and let the group identify what are the biggest skills that are necessary in this particular position, this role, this company, et cetera. So that's a bit more amorphous and less rigid than the where are you exercise.
Yep.
The mission conversation is the hardest conversation. That's where it gets the widest. The tool that I like to use there is generally about what do you want to work towards and what kind of problems would you like to solve? And that's a framed conversation with about 10 questions that I use that helps a group start to understand that the transaction that they may be making isn't the mission. Yes. That's the validation of the mission. So that discussion, again, like 10 questions, starts to weave in concepts that are just bigger than the one and bigger than the many, and creates a pattern of reflection between each other. I pair them in groups, and when we split, new groups, split new groups, split new groups.
Yep.
And then those 10 questions facilitate a dialogue after the fact to help them identify a mission. Once we have gone through the 10 questions, then we're on a whiteboard and we're all sharing almost with Post-it notes. What are the key words? And we start to eliminate the keywords from there. So that's really a framed set of questions, dialogues, and discussions that allows individuals to find the keywords that stand out most to them. And we use that language to develop the mission. Once you have the language, Then we support it with all the necessary organization pieces. Well, we need to touch base this. This is our metric. This is our touch point outside. This is our goals. We spend a lot of time there. So it's a really fun practice, really structured in its own way. And it's loose enough where there's room to be creative without feeling restricted, which I think over years of doing this is mostly art more than science.
Yeah. There's the practical, there's the stringent, there's the process, but then there's the art to it. It's the people sciences. And this is where I was kind of thinking, as we're going through this conversation and how you show up in this, really this dinner and this half a day, which, going to conferences through the years, and going to events, you have a lot of times where people get excited and they get motivated and they start to, build these bonds. But sometimes depending on the company or the people, those things can fall off because there's not like after action items they can use to continue the process. And so for you, as you go into these moments where people are kind of having this experience and it's powerful, what are some ways that you keep people on the path? Whether it's tools, follow up on your end, what kind of things are you doing to take from this moment that you've created with them, co-created together, they've created as well, to say, let's not forget about what we just did and let's continue growing from here.
So I often work with the leader to install very regular touch points and references back to the experience. Love about the human sort of mind and mindset in the workplace is that we often get caught up in minutia so quickly, and very few things break that pattern other than an experience.
Yeah.
If you look back at a memo or an email, it's not going to register any kind of trigger in your mind to do something different. An experience will, whether that's offsite, onsite, something has to break the pattern. So I often work with the leaders afterwards for 3 months to get a full quarter indoctrinated into here's how you reference that. Here's how you check it. Here's how you hold accountability to it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, here's how you lean into it as a leader. Oftentimes I'm invited back to do these in regular occurrences, which is really effective, and it can grow and grow and grow and build. And over the course of a year and a half, 2 years, it doesn't yield ROI like that. Right. It takes time to build. But as you invest in your team more and more, it becomes a part of their culture. They know it's coming. They know to expect it. And so they have an experience behind them and ahead of them.
Yep. Something to look forward to. Yeah.
And this is athletics, right? This is 100% the way it works in athletics. We're going to learn from the game. We're going to get ready for the next game.
Yep.
And I think that focal point and regularity and touch point has gone really far for some organizations to have not only excitement and enthusiasm, but a bit of hand holding. Because for many, this is brand new, right? Many corporations never give a shit about, do people feel connected? Do they feel valued? Do they enjoy coming in? And to break that culture and install a new one can be rather, it can feel like there's friction, and it can be rather intoxicating in some ways if it's brand new. And my job is to make that transition easy and smooth and show that it has a really strong benefit in the organization as a whole.
In this 90-day follow-up that you do with the leaders, how often, and again, this could be situational, it could be, more or less, but what's the average touch point once a week? And are you connecting on just kind of like a Zoom or something? And then, as you expand out into maybe after 6 months, like maybe there's another event or a year, what does that look like for you?
Every week. It's a very simple Zoom call.
Yep.
I guess it depends on location, but typically Zoom call for time's sake. The role of those calls is to coach and lead the leader from the experience down to their team.
Yep.
And then as we prepare for the next one, whatever that might be, the build up to that moment is also much more significant.
Yep.
I find that we use the word team building. What usually happens is companies want to team buy.
Yeah.
Right. They think it's like the Lakers, where you can just like buy a new player and like thumbs up. And the perspective there is, well, if we put money into this, it's just going to work. Or we don't want to put money into it because it won't work.
Yeah.
And that binary option is very, very fallible. The real objective of team building is to regularly and intermittently pop an investment into a team so that they continue to get better and better over time. If they improve 1% per day, that is a massive uptick over the long run.
Yep.
We have a very short-sighted perspective on this. And organizations are being forced to think a bit differently about people.
Yeah, they are.
My job is to be the tool to help them get that 1% per day out of their employees of improvement, rather than creating stagnation and practices that yield low loyalty, low retention, and low productivity.
Can we switch gears a little bit to this financial component of the second thing that you do? What does this look like? Where did you learn, this information? What kind of information are you teaching and revealing with people? And what are some of the benefits for them?
So about 8 years ago, that's crazy. 8 years ago, I was an apartment manager, and I was right near a new school. I went next door and said, "Hey, how can we help? I have all these residents who are they're postdocs, docs, getting ready to go to like hospital work." We were at the junction of Johns Hopkins and Baltimore, watching a very strong nucleus of very smart people not be involved in the community.
Okay.
So I was like, well, we'll just set up tutoring. No big deal. Well, it turned out to be much more difficult than I thought. We needed all kinds of structure, and they really wanted math help. The school really wanted math help. At that point, I had been coaching athletes, young kids for maybe 5 years, and recognized that they didn't know anything, didn't know shit about money.
Yep.
They weren't learning it in school. They weren't going to get it in college. And the way money has evolved over the last several years has changed. So long story made short, we started a nonprofit to teach kids money by making a sport out of money.
Okay.
Started to expand. And over the last 8 years, that journey has manipulated like an origami paper crane. We closed the nonprofit down, opened up a venture-backed company, raised some capital, and built a youth platform that trains schools, youth groups, nonprofits, summer camps, et cetera, on how to run meaningful financial education by combining learn about money. Like you got to know mechanics, but also you got to know you. Got to know your values, your attitude, behavior, social, emotional piece. Behavior is massive. So we put those two together in what I think is one of the better youth training elements for money in the modern day. The pandemic knocked that down.
Yeah.
And we started to go talk to adults. And since then, we've stepped into companies where people are freaking out about money. They're afraid of recession, market turndowns. They don't understand credit. They don't know how to invest. They don't put money aside. Their behavior is lacking, and it directly affects the workplace.
Yep.
And if they show up financially stressed, I have been financially stressed, and I can tell you, nothing else matters.
Right.
Does not matter what is on my plate. If I'm freaking out about money and it's my stability, my family, my like inner peace that's in jeopardy, I don't give a shit about your report. And that has largely meant that we as an organization, great team, have had to seek out some of the best and most reputable speakers and experts around money to build really good content and education.
Okay.
And we bring that and sort of crowdsource the information, sort it out, curate it down to a very relevant step-by-step format that can be adopted fairly easily. We go find the partners, and we run workshops for organizations that already have a good culture. They already invest in their team, but they want something different rather than like lunch in the lobby or gym memberships. They want something real. So we come in and teach the team about building good credit, what those habits look like, how to save for investment, what retirement plans actually are and what's available to them.
Yep.
What does it look like to invest beyond just the market? Can you invest in real estate? What's this whole crypto thing? We have all these beautiful discussions with individuals that are very much less lecture and more conversation with an employee base that employers want to grow. And we've spent a lot of time mastering the art of communicating about money for most people, just the conversation alone is progress.
Yeah.
And then we provide them with the tools, the backbone and the spinal column to really get activated with whatever their next step is. And for some, that might be, look, I need to save for an emergency. I need $1,000 in cash in a bank account. So I'm ready for something that might disrupt that. For some, that might be, look, I have a 401k. I'm doing pretty well. I've got a good salary. I've got excess cash. I just don't know where to put it. And we might help them learn about investing in real estate.
Nice.
So we've really put together a rather robust stair system all the way from youth to wealth, really, that people can leverage if they're looking to get educated. And it's been really exciting over the years to see. I mean, we've impacted like thousands of people, and everyone has their own victory. It's not like it's not a standard benefit, nor is it a standard conversation, because everyone's relationship with money, everyone's goals with money are so wildly different.
Yep. It sounds like the mission and the arc of your narrative so far in these two spaces, right? From the group leadership, the enhancing of team dynamics, mission driven, goal driven, behavioral changes on that side, but then also the same kind of thing with the money mindset and the behavioral changes and the patterns and the processes that you can implement there. It sounds like both of those are lending to a much better employee experience, but it also lends to a better culture, happier people, more empowered people. When you put those two things together and you're looking at that day-to-day impact, what's the vision? So what do you envision in utopia from this work that you're doing? Because it kind of sounds like this is leading to, potentially a culmination of part of your life's work. What does that look like for you?
Man, it's such a great question. I wrote this out maybe 3 years ago. I wrote, my purpose is, which is a really big question. And sometimes,
can you share that?
Yeah. So I was writing this out and I was finding all these words and I couldn't really map it at the time. I was just asking the question, and I had done a lot of work. What I came up with is, my purpose is to uplift others to freedom, awe, and artistry. Those three things: freedom, awe, and artistry. Freedom's interesting because it's going to be very subjective. Awe is this feeling that we have where we are starstruck. We are incapable of movement because of something spectacular in front of our eyes that we see or feel or experience. And then artistry has always been a passion of mine. People are inherently creative when they can escape the need to not be creative.
Yep.
And those three words really stood out. Now that's been my umbrella. What I've learned, especially through the arc of trying to bring education to kids and change a system that's incredibly rigid and outdated, and looking at how and where do you get adults tools that power their lives? What I've noticed is that the central place for all change could take place at work. That's where we have accountability. That's where we have community. That's where we spend an overwhelming amount of our time. And if there is a place to influence the family, the grandparents, the friend group, it's going to be work. And we're seeing a massive change in the way workplaces are treating people and are, as employers, being held accountable for their responsibility in the community. And I guess my enthusiasm really comes from having a very, very, very difficult employer-employee relationship when I first graduated college.
Yep.
And never wanting anyone to feel as disempowered, as paralyzed, as fearful as I did then. And to create the antithesis of that is empowerment, that's enthusiasm, that's camaraderie, that's connection. And when you have that, I've seen it, I've gotten to be a part of it. Life is so much different.
Yeah, it's empowering, it's uplifting. It's you walk with a little different swagger, so to speak, and you have a confidence and you have a knowing of when you're clear, when you've set the intention, when you've done the work, wherever you go, you're powerfully present, and you can walk a path of confidence. And that's really what it comes down to, is clarity, confidence, removing, limiters from yourself so that you can really step into those powerful places.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful work, man. And it's going to compound and ripple out long after these events, long after these retreats, as long as these ideologies and practices and processes are adopted, it's almost like a wealth transfer in itself, where you can pass on information and tools to other people. And this is a great way to do life with other folks. Is, if you can pass on, financial wealth, or you could pass on real estate, you could pass on these tangible things, somewhat intangible. But if you can also pass on ideas and thoughts that can leave a better tomorrow, I mean, that's a life well spent.
I will be very proud at some point. And those points are not like, that makes it sound like it's in the distance, right? Every iteration of me, there's another reason to be proud.
Yeah.
And I will be very proud if we can collectively see paradigm shifts in the way that we treat employees, right? We're still in the middle of this change. And I'm excited to be one among many catalysts for something different for people. Because I've been there. I know it hurts. It sucks when you wake up and feel like you have to. And have to is perhaps a financial condition that may not be easily escapable.
Yeah.
That I understand. It's different when you have to and you hate it.
Yep.
And I think you can do a hard job, you can do gritty jobs, you can do dirty jobs, you can do jobs that aren't necessarily enjoyable and still enjoy the people. You can enjoy the culture, you can enjoy the ecosystem. And that takes somebody, some kind of leader, taking responsibility for what's in place. And if it's not the best for the group and it limits productivity, then it's time to make a change.
It's beautiful work, brother. Noble work, hard work, but it's calling. It's part of how you're showing up in the world. And so just thinking a little bit more towards the distance, is there anything that you're coming up in your world, personally or professionally, that you're excited about, anything you're working towards, anything, on the bucket list, perhaps you'll be able to knock off? What's the future look like for you?
Well, I am 10 weeks into parenthood. So
Congrats, brother.
Yeah, that's an unfolding that's very exciting.
Welcome to the club, dude. How's it been going? You getting any sleep?
Some. I remember when sleep had 5 letters. Now it seems to have like 3.5 letters. Right. That's presenting a whole new wave of context to everything in my life.
For sure.
As I'm out in a new area. So as I'm here, I'm expanding and building a new network and finding new people to be around and developing new habits and friends and friendships. The horizon for me is largely less. And that sounds very strange because there is always something we want more of. I'm working very diligently to better my boundaries, stay into what's essential. Yep. And say the word no way more frequently, especially with a little one here. Like my time is a bit more, it's easier for me to say yes, like I used to, and feel like I'm denying little man something really special. And it's creating a whole new way of life for me. And in a good way, right? I'm like accepting of that transformation. And as bumpy as the road has been in accepting that transformation, I'm very excited for it. So that, with the context, the essential is what I'm focused on, saying no, keeping my boundaries. Yes. And really isolating and building a lifestyle that very different from 9 months ago is one I'm very excited about, and helping others do that along my path and through my bumps of learning is also very fun, right? I step up a stair, I help people up a stair. Step up a stair, help people up a stair. So it's a cool way to live.
It's a great way to do life, brother. And that power of saying no is very powerful. And it not only just saves you time, but saves other people time too. And it's the more hyper focused you can get on the most important things in your life, the better, the richer life becomes, I feel like, versus trying to be everything to everyone, all places at all the times. If you can really whittle down to the 2 to 3 things daily that matter. Not that other things don't matter, but the things that are going to really kind of be that 80-20, and really at the end of the day, dude, being present for yourself and those that you love is really what it's going to come down to. Because when we're, I've heard this from a lot of different people, a lot of different places. When you're in that deathbed, at the end of the day. It's not the money, it's not the cars, it's experiences, it's relationships. It's, did I get enough time with the people that I love the most? And most regrets are people like they work too hard, they didn't have enough time for their loved ones. And so if you can kind of massage both of those as you go along, where you have a successful life, whatever that looks like to you, but you also are experiencing and being with those that you love the most, again, a life well lived. So congrats, brother.
One day at a time.
That's it, man.
They're hard lines to hold.
Yeah. But you go back to that North Star. What's the vision? What's the purpose? What's the goal? And those things, just they really keep us in those moments that we need them. So I want to be the first viewer to say thank you for being you. Thank you for jumping on the podcast. Thanks for opening up your life and your business to us. There was a lot of information that I learned from. So I want to say thank you for that. And our connection is great. And I'm looking forward to seeing where our journey leads, brother.
Me too. Thank you for having me. Yes. Tremendous questions. So thanks for prying in a little bit, and know that wherever the two of us go, man, you got a friend in me.
Hell yeah, brother. Likewise. Thanks so much. He's Aaron Velky. I'm Jesse T. Catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.